It is a pleasure, honor, and privilege to be able to share the Word of God with each and every one of you today. For those who don't know me, my name is Justin Yuen, and I have a confession. I don't know much about Palm Sunday. I grew up as a Christian my entire life, and either it wasn't shared with me or I just wasn't paying attention. Probably the later. And here's the thing, though. As I'm reading more, it's basically the time when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. Now, we've been going through the series of the Gospel of Mark on the theme of the authority of Jesus, and now we are on the theme of following Jesus. See, we have witnessed, over the past months, we have witnessed the authority of Jesus. What authority does Jesus have? He has the authority to heal the sick, illnesses, and body ailments. He speaks with authority to forgive sins. That's kind of a big deal in that time. Authority over the spiritual realm, authority over nature itself, and authority, I call it authority over the economy. He multiplies food. On more than one occasion, actually. So with all this power and authority, what is Jesus choosing to do with it? Well, we're going to find out. See, I wrestle with this question. I wrestle with the fact that we follow, some of us follow, not all of us maybe, we follow a Jesus with all this authority. But yet, me growing up as a person with a disability, with Tourette's, for those who don't know, why do I still have it, even though I follow Jesus? Why does he not heal my Tourette's? Why do I know people who have Tourette's who have been healed of Tourette's? Why not me? Following Jesus, why am I not swimming in money in abundance? Isn't that what following Jesus is supposed to be like? Why are things so hard and difficult? Let's be honest, I think a lot of us ask these questions. Could my perception of Jesus be wrong? What does following Jesus actually mean? See, as Jesus approaches Jerusalem, the disciples still have no idea what's going to happen to him, even though Jesus has explicitly told his disciples that he is going to suffer and die. No parables here. I'm going to suffer and die. And it's by the religious leaders. But what's going through the disciples' minds? What is their perception of Jesus' kingship? What are their thoughts on what we should do with power and authority? See, here's some examples around where the disciples' mindsets are. James and John, they went to Jesus to ask to sit on his right and left when his right and left. They were expecting a triumphant king on an earthly throne. Your right and left in command. Simon Peter tries to rebuke Jesus when he first talks about his death. He couldn't believe someone with so much power and so much authority, such a big followership, could die such a dishonorable death. The disciples wanted a conqueror king. Remember, they are under Roman rule and oppression. And that kingship without death and without the cross. Don't get me wrong, rightly so. They have witnessed his power and authority. What other conclusion would you come to? However, God has a different idea and perspective of what triumph and kingship looks like. Listen up. We'll go through that. So we're going to get into the text here. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, why are you doing this? Say, the Lord needs it and will send it back here shortly. They went and found the colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. As they untied it, some people standing there asked, what are you doing, untying that colt? They answered as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. A donkey. Not just any donkey, a colt, a young donkey. Not trained, no one's ridden on it, nothing. Let's face it, when you think about a donkey, what do you think about? The first thing that comes to my mind is the donkey from Shrek. The very annoying, non-stop blabbering donkey. Nothing majestic, nothing exciting about it. Dumb, stupid, humiliating, annoying. Well, in modern day, yeah, that's what we think. In Jesus' day, that's also what they think. Perspective of donkeys have not changed too much over the years. There's nothing majestic about a donkey. When people are riding in on a donkey, it is both humiliating, but also, you're not going in as a conqueror. It's like, I'm riding on a donkey, I'm coming in peace. I got nothing else. I can't afford a horse, so I'm going to ride a donkey. See, could you imagine what it would be like if world leaders today came riding in on a donkey? Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, riding in on a donkey into Parliament Hill. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, riding in on a donkey. Joe Biden or Donald Trump choosing to ride on a donkey. I'm sure the news media would have a field day on that. Here's something interesting though. When someone is trying to establish a kingship and their authority, you don't do that. You show the world and you show people how much you have, and you don't borrow things. Jesus is literally borrowing a donkey here. He doesn't even buy the donkey. This king would want to flaunt as much power and authority as they have. When I think about like huge processions, I think about Aladdin when Aladdin comes in as the prince and he's showing off all the money and everything like that. That's the type of procession I want, not someone riding in on a donkey. Here's the thing though. Jesus, with the power and authority that Jesus has, particularly the multiplying of food and resources, you would think he has enough money to be able to buy his own donkey. Yet he chooses to borrow it. He chooses not to flex his authority muscles. What is this about? Someone who has the full ability to do everything the world expects, but chooses not to. I am reminded of some stories. There's a book called The Genius of Generosity. And there's a couple of stories there. There was a businessman who chose to give up his entire fortune to start up a parachurch ministry. Some of you know that as Power to Change or Campus Crusade for Christ. I work with InterVarsity, by the way. I don't work with Power to Change. There's other stories where there are doctors out there that choose to live off of a nurse's salary, and they give the rest away. And by doing that, their life reflects it, their house reflects that salary, their car reflects that salary, everything about their lives reflect that salary. These are people who have full capacity to use their financial authority to show off to the world, but they choose not to. It just reminds me of that. How do we find ourselves using the authority and power Jesus has given us? Think about that. Let's go on to the next text. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut from the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna," which means save us now. Save us now, you are king. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest heaven. Mark here is reminding us of something here from the prophet prophet Zechariah, specifically Zechariah 9:9. It reads this: "Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." Jesus is actually fulfilling and dramatically acting out Zechariah's prophecy. Prophecy that's saying that the people's king is going to be riding on a donkey's colt. By Jesus choosing to ride in on a donkey, he is claiming and declaring through his actions that he is king. And not just king over the nation of Israel, but king over all nations of the world. That's a big claim here. Now remember the context. We got to go back to context here. There are two parties here. There's the religious leaders here, which completely understand and remember the prophecy. The religious leaders do not acknowledge Jesus as their king. In fact, they are actually trying to kill him and destroy him. They're seeking out ways to kill and destroy him. And the other party, there's the Romans. The Romans are actually on edge because the Passover, there's like 4 times the amount of people in the city of Jerusalem, from 50,000 to almost 200,000. There are armed guards everywhere, ready to stop any signs of rebellion. And for those who don't know what Passover is, it's literally the feast that the Jews remember that they were not slaves from Egypt. And guess who they're under occupation by? Romans. If there's a time for a rebellion, that's the time. See, here's the thing though. The Romans witnessing this wouldn't understand the context. They would only see a donkey. And guess what? Donkey in Romans' eyes is dumb, stupid, humiliating animal. Humiliating. Could imagine the guards standing on the wall watching this come in and just laughing at Jesus. Like, this is ridiculous. What's going on here? He's just riding on a donkey. He looks stupid. He looks dumb. Especially since before that, there's an original procession where we later find out about a man named Pilate. He's a Roman official, a general. And he's in the city to deal with any potential rebellion. Him coming in, there would have been horns blaring, riding on a horse, soldiers marching, full gear, everything. People would have witnessed this procession. So they're comparing these two processions going on. And they're like, this is dumb, the Romans are thinking. However, for the religious leaders, it meant that Jesus was claiming that he was their king. And in their minds, that's called blasphemy, punishable by death. However, the people of Israel cannot issue the death sentence. Only the Romans can do that. Later, we discover the accusation put before Pilate is not blasphemy because he doesn't care about blasphemy. But instead, they say, this is a man who calls himself the King of the Jews. In Roman belief, they believe that Caesar is true king of all nations. He is the Son of God. When someone becomes Caesar, they become a god, a true Son of God, the true King of all nations. To have anyone else proclaiming they are king, well, well, you can't have that, can you? In this case, it's the responsibility of the Romans to quell any signs of rebellion, any signs of someone claiming kingship. And in Jesus' case, death on the cross. As you can see, Jesus is going to be attacked on many fronts now. See, you have people waving palm leaves and laying down cloaks. Like, I could imagine if there's a crowd of people, there's going to be multiple people's expectations and perspectives here. Let's go over some of the things that have happened so far. Excuse me. There may be people who have witnessed the healing of blind Bartimaeus. So maybe people are coming in and saying, oh, maybe Jesus will heal me. There are people who may have witnessed Jesus feeding multiple thousands of people. Excuse me, not just 5,000, but probably over 10,000 there. Maybe I'll get another meal out of Jesus. Maybe I'm just around and there's a crowd forming. I want to check out the crowd. Or maybe I've heard stories. I've heard stories of his power and authority. I want to see a show. Or maybe I'm tired of the Romans. I'm tired of the Romans being here. Maybe this is the guy that's going to set us free. Maybe this is the time for us to kick the Romans out. Some of the people in this place are expecting Jesus to take up arms. They want him to use the power. Now, I had to think about this as someone in the crowd. What would I expect Jesus, like a king, to come in as? When I think about something like, I think about Super Bowl shows or Taylor Swift's Era concert. Like, it's just, they hype it up. They announce it. You have a herald leading the way. Let me see if I can get my best herald voice here. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, allow me to introduce to you the man who has authority and power over all things. You've seen him heal the sick, cast out the unclean spirits, calm the storms, and multiply food. Riding in on a donkey, raise up your palm leaves for the forgiver of sins, the Son of David, your King, your Messiah, Jesus. Right? Could you imagine that happening? And then Jesus, like flying in from the sky, and just before he hits the ground, angels swoop him up. He lands on the ground, fig trees are growing, the weather is going crazy, and he's like, oh, you're hungry? A meal for you, a meal for you, a meal for you. Everyone gets a meal. Like, if there's one way to actually do something to bring something along, like, also keep in mind, people are wanting to fight. If people know he can raise the dead, well, I don't have to worry about dying now, too. Like, he has everything going for him to get his following. Everything. Wouldn't doing that convince everyone that Jesus is the Messiah? But we find out he doesn't do that. Why? Here is the shocking expectation. All that power, all that authority, all that ability to do X, Y, and Z to show he could be the king. Imagine being in the crowd, expecting a huge show, and then all of a sudden, he's just coming in on a donkey. Now, if you're Israelite, that's like, oh, he's Zechariah. This is the king. Great. But that's it. Wouldn't you be disappointed? I know I'd be. I'd be like, Jesus, heal me on my Tourette's right now. It's like, no, he's just riding on a donkey. See, the kingdom of Jesus will look different. And here, He's been constantly alluding to his disciples that it's going to look different. Do they get it though? Let's recap. So the kingdom of Jesus is going to look like humility, peace, followers choosing to deny themselves, serving all, or slave to all, as he also uses those words, loving all, picking up your cross and following him, suffering. What? There doesn't seem anything majestic about that. At least not in this world. Everything that Jesus does and everything we do will change the paradigms and perceptions in all the ages. So, my friends, what are our own expectations on what it means to follow Jesus? I've probably gone through some of these that I'm going to share, and I've heard some of these. You probably heard some of them too. I follow Jesus because it's going to be easy. I follow Jesus because I don't want to suffer. I follow Jesus because I want to have more stuff. I follow Jesus because I want to be healthy. I follow Jesus because I want my kids to obey me more. Believe it or not, that one was kind of used to bring my family into the church. Hey, God uses the most weirdest things for his glory, so I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that messed up tactic, so praise the Lord. I follow Jesus because insert. See, if you are choosing to follow Jesus as your king, it means you have no other allegiances. It means that you are willing to deny yourself, willing to say no to yourself and say yes to Jesus, willing to make sacrifices for Jesus, willing to take up your cross and follow him to Jesus. Treasure Jesus more than anything in the world, loving and serving all. How has Jesus called you to follow him as king? See, I've wrestled with this. I've wrestled with this a lot. I chose yes. I said yes to Jesus to follow him outside of an engineering job. I had a really good engineering job lined up upon graduation, and Jesus called me into full-time vocational ministry as a campus minister. I'm still working with that organization to this day, 15 years. I said no to getting a high-paying job. I said no to friends. I had to follow Jesus despite the challenges that came before me. I had communities of faith say I shouldn't be doing this and choosing not to support me, or even using their power, trying to use their power and authority to force me out of the work. It was hard. It was very hard. And yes, following Jesus, there are some good parts to it. Actually, a lot of good parts to it. But nothing, Jesus never promises that's going to be an easy ride. There's a cost. What are you willing to give up? I'll share a very specific example. When Jesus called our family to move back to Regina, we lived in BC, in Burnaby, for 14 years. And in that moment, we're giving up everything. And we felt God calling us to go sell everything, give to the poor, and come follow me to Regina. Back home. Back to some of the hurt and places that I'll be honest, I was afraid. We were all afraid as a family. And we gave away almost all of our earthly possessions here to move here. We gave away one of our vehicles. We could only fit what could fit in my parents' van and our RAV4, and we gave the rest of the stuff to our tenants, who were immigrants from Sri Lanka. And then moving here to Regina, the moment I said yes to following Jesus to Regina, I started getting a lot of my friends and supporters who said, yeah, Justin, I'm going to cut my support for you. I'm going to give locally, which I blessed them into. But man, was that hard. Was that hard? I lost a lot of support to come here. That's the reality, though. And as hard as it is, I'm here and joyful. Things around me haven't changed much. Things are still hard. But I see Jesus as my Savior. You can choose. You can choose to follow Jesus or not. I'm going to invite the worship team up. And we're going to listen to I want to invite you to reflect on this next song. It's going to be different than what you're used to. It's a common song that everyone knows, but you're going to feel it a little bit different. So you may feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. Because following Jesus, there's joys and there's challenges. And I want you to sit in with some of those potential challenges that you're going to be going through.